Shalom, welcome to the Jewish Task Force, J.T.F. I'm Chaim Ben Pesach, and we have with us once again the great David Ben Moshe. This is going to be a rough program because we're going to talk about the Trump betrayal on Iran. He's going in the wrong direction on Iran, and that's very dangerous, not only for Israel, but for the whole world. Very dangerous, because it will lead to a nuclear Iran, unless something miraculous happens, unless God does something miraculous to save us from all of this. We're going to be headed toward a nuclear Iran, which will mean the nuclearization of the Muslim states surrounding Israel, God forbid. It's not a good situation, and we're going to discuss it. We're also going to discuss the fact that Jews and righteous Gentiles better wake up fast, because America is in bad shape. Trump and his policies are not working out well. And the Democrat alternative, you know who the front runner is for the Democrat nomination according to polls now? AOC. I mean, this is just, we are really in a dangerous situation in this country and in the world. And people have to wake up and we have to start acting. But before we get to all of that, this program is dedicated to a refuah shlema, a complete recovery for David Ben Edna, Ashidina Bat Violet, Shlomo Ben Sarah, Ruth Bat Sarah, Dorit Bat Sarah, and Reuven Ben Shoshana. And to Ilui Neshamot, elevating of the souls for Sharon Mitman, Malka Bat Meir, Allegra Bat Shlomo, Daniel Neinkin, Victor Chazdai, Pesach Zev Ben Dov, Lunita Adler, Shifra Hoffman, Reuven Hoffman, Barry Hoffman, Arab Mir Kahana, Arab Binyamin Kahana, Tzipora Fegi Bat Liba, Yosef Ben Meir, Robert Mitman, Dennis Shore, Helen Friedman, Charles Zolat, and Yair Levine. Now, of course, I like doing pleasant programs and happy programs where we can give good news, but we also have to give the bad news when the bad news comes. And the situation with the negotiations that Donald Trump and his self-hating Jewish representative at the talks, his chief negotiator, Steve Witkoff, are doing with Iran, this is really, really bad, what he's doing. And I feel that his whole administration now is beginning to come apart at the seams. I think things are falling apart. I think his whole rush into all of these programs is not working out well. And I'm going to explain why I don't think it's going to work out well. But first, I want to say there is also good news that we can report. I want to give people good news also, because in the end, the good guys are going to win. In the end, God is going to redeem the world for the righteous. That we've been promised, and everything that God promises will come true. That's why the Jews returned to the land of Israel after 2,000 years. That's why we see fulfillment of biblical prophecy. Because when God makes promises, that all comes true. And in the end, the good guys are going to win because God is going to intervene on their behalf. But in the meantime, there could be a lot of suffering and pain and death and terrible things that can happen. So we want to avoid that in the meantime before the final redemption comes. We're in the redemption now. We're in a period of redemption. The recreation of the state of Israel is the beginning of the redemption for Israel and for the world. It's the beginning, but we still have a process to go through here for the final redemption, which is going to be much greater. But, you know, I'm just give you an illustration of where our hope does lie. Od lo avda tikvatenu, it says in the Israeli national anthem, which means our hope is not yet lost. That's what the Jews said after the Holocaust, when it seemed completely hopeless. They said in their national anthem, Od lo avda tikvatenu, our hope is not yet lost. And they wouldn't give up, and look at the magnificent country they created and the great destiny that they're building for themselves and for the world in the land of Israel. I'm going to tell you a story about Stay Yonatan. Stay Yonatan means is one of the Hilltop communities. It's a community with one Jewish family, just one Jewish family, and then young teenage and teenagers, basically young teenage heroes that also live there, who are because they're part of the struggle. So you have single young teenagers working with one Jewish family. That's the whole community of Steh Yonatan. The Israeli government has destroyed that Hilltop community many times, and J.T.F. has helped them rebuild. And many times, the Arab world is doing videos about how they are causing thousands of Arabs to leave Israel. Whole villages are emptying because of this one hilltop community. Because they graze on the land that the Arabs want to graze on, so the Arabs feel threatened, and then the Arabs exaggerate when they see this. You know, it's part of Arab culture and Islamic culture to exaggerate. The Zionists are conquering and swallowing up the whole world. Woo! You know, this is their endless propaganda, constantly lying and fantasizing. But this works in our favor because they create panic among their own people when they do this. And so,
Well, when you tell a lie often enough and you make it bigger and bigger each time, it becomes the truth in your mind.
oh, they believe, a lot of them believe what they're saying. I mean, I think some of it is so exaggerated that I think that they know that they're lying. The people starting the lies know that they're lying when they start. But yeah, I think that's true. I think that's true. That after a while they believe their own lies. Yes. And this is just one out of many communities we have. Many of these hilltop communities spread all over the strategic hilltops of Judea and Samaria. This one place, there's Yonatan, one Jewish family with several Jewish teenagers who live there also to help with the flocks and with the agriculture and with the needs of the settlement. This one little spot is causing thousands of Arabs to leave. They're complaining to the United States and the State Department and the UN and the European Union and all the Arab agencies and Arab ambassadors are involved with one little thing over here. That's just one. And there are dozens and dozens of these communities, many of which are a lot larger. You altogether you have about 3,000, at least 3,000 hilltop youth living in these places. I mean, this should give us hope. This is a miracle against all odds. Look what they're doing. This is David against Goliath. It's like, what I said on CNN when I was in a debate with the head of the National Council on Soviet Jewry, the Jewish Establishment Organization. And he admitted in the debate that we in the JDL are what caused them to act on Soviet Jewry as well, because we're the ones that got the issue going. The issue was dead until JDL started, until the Jewish Defense League of our great beloved Rabbi Meir Kahana, Zecher Tzaddik V'Kadosh Livracha Hashem Yikom Damo. Until we started it, the Soviet Jewry issue was dead. But as I said in the debate, when they said to me, aren't you, and they used to say this to me all the time, isn't this like David against Goliath? You're going against the Soviet Empire to demand freedom for Soviet Jews, you? And this is like David versus Goliath. And I said, this is like David versus Goliath. But if I remember correctly, it didn't turn out so badly for David in the end. And we're seeing David versus Goliath here. We're seeing impossible things happen. When how do I translate this into English from the Hebrew? It says, give me, like the hole. What is it you call the hole in a needle? What is that called? The hole?
Die.
Yeah. Give me a little bit. God says to the Jews, give me just a little bit. In other words, show faith and do things in the right direction. And even though it seems like the eye of a needle, it seems like a small thing. And you'll see that through that needle, you'll be able to move huge things through that needle miraculously. God will do things miraculously when we do what's right. And that's what the Hilltop youth are doing. And that's why we have to support them. It's essential that we support them. But that's the good news. The good news is that they're winning on that front, and they're proving that if Israel just did the right thing and just had faith in God and did what was right, we'd become a light unto the nations and a holy nation, a nation of priests, and all the things we're destined to become, and miraculous victories would occur, like we saw with the beepers. You remember the beepers? When all of a sudden, Hundreds of beepers all at once went off and blew the brains out of all these Muslim Nazis. You remember that? And that was incredible, that mission. Israel can do the same thing against Iran. Israel can do things like that against Iran. Israel was inside Iran's nuclear program repeatedly. They're inside the program already. Remember, Benjamin Netanyahu held a press conference at the UN and showed all of the documents. He had all the thousands of documents from the Iranian nuclear program that Israel got. Instead, he shouldn't have been showing them off. He shouldn't have told the Iranians that they have it. If they're inside the program, they should blow the whole thing up from inside. But anyway, Israel's capable of doing all of that miraculously if we just had real leadership. If we just had heroes like the Hilltop Youth, if we had a country run by idealists and God-fearing Jews like the Hilltop Youth, all of those things would happen. Instead, where are we going now? Donald Trump and Steve Witkoff are pushing for an Obama-style agreement, for a return to the Barack Hussein Obama agreement, where Iran will be able to continue to produce uranium and will be able to quickly produce plutonium and nuclear bombs whenever Iran wants to. They will continue to get the ability to do this. They will have the ability to do this, except according to the agreement, it'll be limited. They won't be able to do it at 90% purity, which is weapons grade uranium. They won't be able to do that under the agreement. But if they want to break out of the agreement, they could do it within days or within weeks, at the most within weeks, and build nuclear bombs. So this is insanity to give them this ability. That was the Obama plan. And Trump and Witkoff are doing the same thing. Now, the great Mishmat is a member of our English language forum. The great Mishmat pointed out to me something. He showed me, he pointed out something to me, which I didn't use on last week's program on Iran, which is very important. Steve Witkoff is a billionaire businessman who was going bankrupt. Donald Trump seems to love billionaire businessmen who are going bankrupt because that's what he is. And Steve Witkoff was a billionaire businessman who was involved in the real estate market, and he was going bankrupt. He had a hotel in New York, in Manhattan, the hotels in Manhattan are extremely expensive. Manhattan real estate is among the most expensive real estate in the world. But his hotel was not worth what he sold it for. Qatar, Muslim terrorist Qatar, a Muslim terrorist country that is the host and the sponsor for Al Jazeera. Al Jazeera is the Arab Muslim Nazi television station that supported the October 7th attacks with Hamas, that has interviews with the Hamas leaders praising and glorifying Hamas, that supported the 9/11 attack on the Twin Towers in the United States, that has endless programs with the theme of death to America and death to Israel. That's Al Jazeera. That's their television station. And Qatar, that Muslim terrorist country, bought the hotel that was going bankrupt from Steve Witkoff. You know what they paid for it? $623 million. $623 million for one hotel? This hotel isn't worth anything close to that. They didn't just buy the hotel. They bought Steve Witkoff. He is bought and paid for by Qatar. That's Trump's representative. By the way, they did the same thing with Trump's son-in-law, with Kushner, who also was having problems with his real estate dealings and got multi-million-dollar deals with the Saudis and with other Persian Gulf Arabs. So we're in a situation here where these people are bought off already. And they're going into negotiations here. There shouldn't be any negotiations with Iran. There should be military strike now to destroy Iran's nuclear bomb-making program and to destroy the Iranian economy, which can be done very quickly. Bomb their oil fields, bomb their harbors, bomb their roads. The roads in Iran and the highways in Iran, as we've pointed out in the past, were all built by Israelis. At the time when Israel had good relations with the Shah was the dictator of Iran before the Islamic Revolution in 1979. And when Israel had good relations with the Shah, Israel is the one that built 90% of their roads and 90% of their connection points that connect the country will be paralyzed if Israel bombs their roads and their connection points. The country will be without any revenue if Israel bombs their oil fields and their harbors. The country, it would take at least a year to rebuild everything. And so for a whole year, they'll have no revenue. They have nothing. And they're already deep in debt and unable to function as a country. They're already having blackouts and unable to provide electricity and running water to much of their population. And Israel can also bomb, of course, their electric grid. They have a primitive electric grid. If Israel strikes at their electric grids, they can put the whole country in darkness. The Iranian people already hate the Iranian regime. Not because the Iranian people are a wonderful people, which is what Netanyahu and Trump say. They're not a wonderful people. They enthusiastically supported the Iranian regime. Remember when most of our viewers maybe are too young to remember this, but the hostage, they took American hostages, 52 American diplomats at the U.S. Embassy in Tehran were taken hostage for 444 days. And day after day, millions of Iranians would flood the streets screaming, "Death to America, death to Israel, death to the Christians, death to the Jews." You remember that, right, David?
Sure.
And this was
And they parade those hostages around blindfolded just to humiliate them.
It was, and they're doing that with the Israeli hostages now. They do things like that with the Israeli hostages now in Gaza, the same thing. This is what Muslims like to do. They love to humiliate their enemies, and it's a horrible, horrible situation. The United States never got revenge for any of this stuff, which is why the Iranians are emboldened and other Muslim terrorists are emboldened to repeat these vile actions. But anyway, now we're in a negotiating period where they're negotiating this horrible agreement that they want to do. But the worst part of the agreement is not just that they're going to enable Iran to go nuclear whenever Iran wants to. Not just that. The thing that Iran really wants out of the agreement is they're going to also lift the sanctions. So Iran will have hundreds of billions of dollars in oil revenue that will enable Iran to build a massive arsenal of nuclear weapons and a massive program of ballistic missiles. Iran already has a huge program of drones. They have provided thousands and thousands of drones to Russia for Russia's war against Ukraine. Russia would be in terrible shape militarily if not for the thousands of drones that Iran produced and gave to them. Iran produced these unmanned drones to attack Ukrainian positions in the Ukraine-Russia war. And the Russians are helping Iran with their nuclear program in exchange. And I wouldn't be surprised, by the way, if the Russians went way beyond even what we know in terms of helping them. Who knows what the Iranians have now with the help of Russia. So we're in a very bad situation here unless urgent military action is taken. And what we have said is Israel should go in alone. Trump doesn't have the guts to take on the Iranians, even though for the United States military it'd be such an easy operation. So easy. Not invade the country like Iraq and George W. Bush did and occupy the country for many years and spend trillions of dollars and lose thousands of American soldiers. No occupying of a Muslim country. That was very stupid what Bush did. But stupid Trump thinks every military action is going to be another Iraq. So he shies away from everything like a coward. And he was a coward, by the way. In the Vietnam War, he was also a coward. He was a draft dodger. 6 times he got out of the draft. He got his rich daddy to get him out of the draft 6 times in the Vietnam War. And then he said on the Howard Stern show, I'm doing my patriotic duty every time I have sex with prostitutes, every time I have sex with these women. That's my patriot. That's how I'm fulfilling my patriotic duty. When he was having adulterous relationships with prostitutes, he was bragging about it on the Howard Stern show and they were both joking about it and bragging about it. These are all real things that he was doing. And he said, well, when I'm doing that, I'm doing my patriotic duty. I mean, this is the mentality we're dealing with here. And I know that Trump people are not going to like what I'm saying, but everything I'm saying is true. And it's disgusting. And he, by the way, he has contempt for American veterans. Contempt. Remember, he said that John McCain, now I hated John McCain, but for him to say that John McCain was a loser because he was captured as a prisoner of war, that was a disgrace. He said, I don't want people who are captured. I don't want prisoners who, I want people who weren't captured. In other words, he's a loser. He was captured. He's a loser. I want people that weren't captured. What a nerve from someone who dodged the draft for him to talk like this about American veterans. An American veteran who was captured by the North Vietnamese is not a loser. He's a hero. That's a despicable thing to say. And
especially if you survived, because you were tortured. Anything they wanted to know, you would eventually break and tell them, because the company I retired from, we have retirement luncheons, and one of the speakers once was a POW in Vietnam, and he said the torture these people put through you would break. The most you could take was 15 minutes before you'd start talking. One guy lasted 4 hours, but eventually he spoke too. So there's supposed to be rules of warfare, but which countries follow it and which ones don't?
well, North Vietnam certainly never followed it. Neither do the communist countries. Don't communist countries don't follow any rules.
And neither do Muslim countries.
Right. The Muslim and communist countries, they have no. Those are things that Western countries are supposed to follow. But these evil dictatorial regimes, they're cruel and barbarous beyond words, beyond our human imagination. In any event, and even though I'm saying all this, of course we supported Trump over the Democrats. The Democrats are even worse. They are worse, and we supported them. We supported Trump over the Democrats, and we're gonna be forced to support the Republican candidate again in 2028. We have no choice, because the Democrats are as bad as everything I'm telling you. The Democrats are worse. We have to support Trump and the Republicans. We don't have a choice. So look at the terrible situation we're in here. Look at the box we're in. And can you imagine these fanatic maniacs who glorify death, handing them nuclear bombs? Even Trump said 2 days ago, when a reporter asked him, he said, Iran can't have a nuclear weapon. He says, because you'll be very unhappy, Trump said, if Iran has a nuclear weapon. Because if Iran has a nuclear weapon, your life will be in danger, he told the reporter. So he understands that. But he doesn't understand that what he's doing is going to lead to that? Unbelievable.
Does he understand? And most people don't fathom this. Just like at World War II, we didn't understand the Japanese way of thinking, that Muslims, if they sign a contract, if they sign a treaty, they're not bound to keep it. And that's not just a command from their leaders, that's a religious command, that no contract is binding with infidels. And this should be impressed upon him, that you can't trust them.
Well, he doesn't understand that. And because he makes real estate deals with them, they buy him off with real estate deals, and he thinks this is a real estate deal. And he doesn't mind dealing with people who break agreements, because he breaks all the agreements too. He also violates all the agreements he's ever entered into. Anyone who knows his history, he doesn't pay his bills. I mean, that's Trump's history. He didn't pay his bills. Anyway, I don't even want to go into it. I don't want to go into it again. When we were doing Jews for Cruz, we supported Ted Cruz in 2016. We did Jews for Cruz commercials. I showed the ordinary working class people that he ripped off at Trump University. He charged them $35,000 tuition and did nothing for them. Took their money, and he says he's going to teach them how to become very wealthy and rich and successful. He didn't teach them anything, didn't do anything, just took their money, and in the end, he had to return their money. He was sued. He could have been indicted for fraud. But in the end, Attorney General Elliot Spitzer from New York, another self-hating Jewish piece of garbage, got him to return millions of dollars and said that it was a fraud. I mean, there was no question that he committed fraud, and he acknowledged that he acknowledged he had to return the money. Anyway, and I want Jews and righteous Gentiles in America to understand just how serious this situation is. This is the Republicans. What if the Democrats take over the White House in 2028? According to polls now, I don't know if it's going to turn out this way. If the Democrats have any sanity, they're not going to do this. But Democrats, by definition, are not sane, and so polls show that there's tremendous excitement building for the candidacy of AOC. AOC is the congresswoman from Queens, who is an admitted socialist, a vicious anti-Semite, someone who accuses Israel of genocide, who is against the very existence of Israel. She attacks Zionism, which means the existence of Israel. She's against the very existence of Israel. She goes to demonstrations where American and Israeli flags are burned and where they chant from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. That means destroying Israel, that Israel's wiped off the face of the earth. And she's part of it. That's the movement she's part of. And she, according to many people, is becoming a major contender for the Democrat presidential nomination. Could you imagine if she becomes president? Can you imagine what would happen? Do you think the United States could survive if she became president? She hates America. She hates anything good about this country. She wants to turn this country into a third world hellhole, which is happening anyway, but she wants to do it very fast. She wants to do it overnight. And if she gets elected, it will happen overnight. She would literally open the borders completely and flood the country completely and do everything possible to undermine all the institutions of the country, all the institutions that are still operating or working in the country. She's the front runner in the minds of some people for the nomination. There are pollsters. You can look it up on Google. There are pollsters and experts who are saying, "Oh, she's the one to watch for 2028. She's the one with the momentum." And some of them are guessing. They have shows on MSNBC, on the communist television stations, MSNBC and CNN. Yimach Shmam V'Zichram. The CNN, by the way, stands for Communist News Network. These two hideous networks, they have their experts coming on. They keep saying, "Well, who do you see for 2028? Who do you see is getting?" They all say, "Looks like AOC seems to be gaining momentum." Now, will she be exposed before then? Because she's so extreme and so vicious and so toxic. Will she be
So
exposed?
stupid.
And so stupid. She's also stupid, right? Will she be? She couldn't even handle the job of being a waitress. They wanted to fire her. She couldn't even handle that job. And then she went from that to be right away from waitress to congresswoman, and now she wants to go from congresswoman to president. That's where this country is going. That's the level of where things are going on the Democrat side of the equation. Democrats are half the country. That's half of America. That's the mentality of half of America. Nobody will condemn her on the Democrat side. They all, "Oh, she's doing very positive. She's holding mass rallies with Bernie Sanders against Trump. She's good. Oh, she's good." Can you imagine if she becomes president? What's going to happen? And talk about the politicization of the Justice Department. She'll put everybody in prison who oppose. I mean, she's a real communist. She is a communist. So, and the media will back her up, of course, the left-wing media, because left-wing media is pro-communist. And by the way, everything I'm saying is no exaggeration. This is literally where we're going. If I had said this 10 years ago, people would say I'm crazy for even suggesting this. But this is where we are today. So things are, in the United States, things are pretty bad. That's why I urge Jews to make Aliyah. Learn Hebrew. Prepare yourself for Aliyah. Aliyah means move to Israel. Jews belong in Israel. That's the place for the Jewish people, Israel. But first, you really should learn Hebrew and prepare your Aliyah well so that it'll be a successful Aliyah. But you should move to Israel. There's no future for you in the United States. Righteous Gentiles, I don't know what to say to the righteous Gentiles in America. It's quite a bad situation. And who would the Republican? The Republican would be J.D. Vance, who is terrible. Terrible. By the way, J.D. Vance before he realized that it's good to praise Trump, was comparing Trump to Hitler. J.D. Vance used to compare Trump to Hitler. He was a leftist. You trust somebody like that? You want somebody like that to be president of the United States? That's what you trust? And, you know, and his positions on the issues are not good. So that's where we are, and hopefully he won't get the Republican nomination. I hope it'll be someone like Ted Cruz or Senator Tom Cotton of Arkansas, who would be very good, and Ron DeSantis. All of them, those are good. Would be excellent. All three of those would be excellent presidents. They could at least temporarily pull the United States out of this rut and put the United States on the right track, at least temporarily. But things are not going to go well. And things are not going to go well if Trump betrays Israel, which is what he's doing now. Things are not going to go well. Things were going very well for Donald Trump. He was leading in the polls. He was on his way to getting reelected in 2020. He was on his way to getting reelected easily. Remember, the economy was booming and Americans were happy, and he had high approval ratings on the economy. And even though the media and the Democrats hated him with passionate hatred, the majority of the American people thought things were better under him, and they were happy with him. Then he came out with his Middle East peace plan, where he advocated for a so-called Palestinian state, which would be national suicide for Israel. And there's no such thing as a Palestinian people or Palestine. That doesn't exist. That's a complete myth, a lie, a hoax. But anyway, he came out for a Palestinian state, which would have been suicide for Israel. It was called the deal of the century, where he was going to make a Middle East deal here. Netanyahu right away accepted it, because Netanyahu accepts anything any American president says right away. And Trump came out with this deal 1 week after, right away, the coronavirus struck the United States. Before then, the United States hadn't been affected by the coronavirus, and it could have been affected in a different way. God controls these things. But God punished Trump and America because Trump went against Israel. And what seemed like a certain reelection, he was on his way to be reelected easily, because if you remember, the economy was doing well and everything was going well and people were optimistic, and the Democrats were in disarray, and the Democrats were about to nominate Joe Biden, the late Joe Biden. They were going to nominate. Trump could easily have beaten the late Joe Biden in 2020 if the economy was going well and if Americans were happy. You think that the late Joe Biden would have beaten Trump? No way. No way. And then all of a sudden, literally, as soon as he came out with the Middle East plan, bam, the corona crisis struck, much worse than expected. Much worse than expected. Then you remember, the entire country was shut down. It looked like the country was headed toward a Great Depression. The economy was collapsing. Americans were very unhappy. Americans were in a panic, and remember how unhappy people were during the corona crisis? Very unhappy. Americans were very upset. And Trump mishandled it completely. He said that we should inject pneumonia into our veins, that'll clean it out. That'll clean out the coronavirus. I mean, he came up with these, because that's Donald Trump.
How many places went out of business, especially restaurants, who were just making ends meet, living paycheck to paycheck? They couldn't take being shut up for week after week after week. And if you look at California, it's just empty restaurant after empty restaurant.
And no question. And Trump, not just in California, the whole country businesses all over the country were facing this crisis. Children weren't in school. The schools were closed. Do you remember this? People weren't at work. It was just, and there was tremendous, people were very depressed because they couldn't go out of the house and they had to wear masks everywhere. And people were very depressed and worried about it. And we had all the statistics every week. Thousands of people were dying every week. You remember this? It was really bad. And this is what struck the country. It would have been different. I'm telling you, it would have been different if Trump had not betrayed Israel. He would have gone on to get reelected, and the whole history of what happened would have been different. But Trump made his choice. Now he's doing this again to Israel, and guess what? Same thing is happening. Trump is saying he's going to pull Trump is saying now the tariffs, even against China, he's going to reduce. He's already backing down. And Elon Musk, who's in charge of his cost-cutting efforts, saw that his Tesla profits dropped 71%. So he promised the Tesla people that he's going to get out of this now, and he's going to start concentrating again on Tesla because his company is in trouble. And so they've cut almost nothing. But Elon Musk said that he's going to be pulling back from his activities here because he has to concentrate on his own private businesses now again. And he said most of the work has already been done. The work has already been done. They've reduced nothing. Do you know that Trump is spending more in the first few months of his presidency than Biden spent during the same period of time? Spending has gone up, not down. So they've cut almost nothing. I mean, this is just what a joke. What a joke. So this is where we're going to wind up going. Now, if that's going to be the record they're going to run on, the Republicans are going to be in a lot of trouble. If after promising they're going to cut the size of government, if government continues to grow, and promising they're going to deal with the debt and the deficit, and the deficits and the debt actually get much worse, which is where we're headed, and the economy goes down, and then Trump backs off on his tariffs after making such a big deal and causing the market such distress, and then he backs down and surrenders. If that happens, he can use all the excuses in the world. It's not going to work out for him. But this is what happens when you go against Israel. I will bless them that bless thee and curse them that curse thee. Bad move.
It'll be a real bloodbath for the Republicans 2 years from now when the congressional seats are up again.
We're in trouble. In the United States, we're in trouble. Israel is the one place where there's hope. That's the place where there's still hope. But again, I want to remind everybody, after I've mentioned all these bad things, that God promises that in the end, the good Jews and the good Gentiles are going to win in the end. The good ones are going to win. That you can be sure of. God promises that. But there could be a lot of suffering and pain and terrible things in the interim. That's what we're trying to avoid. Let me give people an opportunity again, before we turn to David, to help the heroic Hilltop youth, because what they're doing, that should give hope to everybody. They are the living proof of what happens when you stand up for principles and are idealistic. When will people realize this? What a beautiful life they live. They've given up everything, moved to the hilltops to defend their country and defend their people, and this is what they live for. I mean, this is the most beautiful most beautiful story you could possibly see or tell. Every one of us should be supporting them. First of all, you should leave J.T.F. in your will so that you can leave support for the Hilltop youth. Put in your will, set aside for J.T.F. in your will so that the Hilltop youth will have support for you when you leave this world. And believe me, that will help you more than it'll help them. And there are two things you can do going to our Hebrew main page. You go to our Hebrew main page, hayamin.org, and there are two things you can do. You click on the donate button on top in English, and you can do recurring monthly donations. People should do recurring. You just check off the monthly amount that you want to donate to J.T.F. every month, and you help the Hilltop youth every month automatically. Recurring donations, check that off. Check off the amount you want. And secondly, you can do the one-time donations. One-time donations are also very important. Easy, convenient. All you have to do is click on the donate button, and very easily and conveniently you can donate. That's online. If you don't want to do it online, if you want to do it through regular mail, you just send checks and money orders made out to J.T.F. to our P.O. Box. You send it to J.T.F. P.O. Box 650327, Fresh Meadows, New York 11365. David?
I'm going to start talking about what's going on in America with crime. There was a wild fight at a Chicago Walmart. And all four Walmarts in Chicago are now looking to close up and get out. And the residents are crying that they'll have no place to shop. But the residents never decry the people that are causing Walmart to pack up and leave. It's you can't do business in a town where if you're just getting by because the people around you are not that rich, and then people come in and steal maybe 20% of what you have on your shelves, you can't stay in business like that. So you have to pack up and get out. I saw at Dunkin' Donuts where, and you've never seen this in a Dunkin' Donuts, they're behind plexiglass windows so that you can't even come into contact with them. You place your order and they put your donuts in a metal bin and they cycle around because it goes around in a circle and it comes out on your side. So that's how you pay. There's absolutely no contact with the people behind the plexiglass or acrylic window. This is what we're coming to. We're the ones living behind bars.
By the way, the owners of Dunkin' Donuts are self-hating Jews who support all the anti-Israel causes and all the evil enemies of Israel. Self-hating Jews are the owners of Dunkin' Donuts. Also, the Hyatt Hotel. Who owns the Hyatt Hotel? The Pritzker family. What's his name? J.B. Pritzker or whatever his name is.
J.B. Pritzker.
J.B. Pritzker, that hideous Judenrat capo piece of filth who's the governor of Illinois. They fund all of the anti-Israel groups in Israel, all the groups that work to undermine Israel, dozens of groups in Israel they fund to hurt Israel and undermine Israel. Hyatt hotels, Dunkin' Donuts should be boycotted. By the way, Dunkin' Donuts should also be boycotted because they're very unhealthy because it's poison. Aside from everything else, people shouldn't be eating donuts, shouldn't be eating that garbage, but they should be boycotted. Okay, David, I'm sorry.
Meanwhile, two teens, 14, 15 years old, go into a convenience store and they rob it. And the man who's there on the night shift, probably not a manager, just an employee, comes around to stop them. And he's not an old man. He's in his 40s. Looks like maybe 40, could be even in his 30s. He gets a heart attack and collapses into one of the displays. And they not only rob him while he's on the ground, they can take their time and rob whatever they want. Then they run out of the store and come back again to rob some more. And they do that another time, a third time. They run out of the store, maybe to bag the loot and take it away. And they come back again and rob the store. Nobody calls 911 for this guy until somebody finally comes in. And the traffic isn't heavy in the middle of the night in a convenience store. So it took a while. I believe he survived, but I'm not sure. But nobody wanted to help him. Meanwhile, in Oklahoma City, a woman, her name is, I don't know how to pronounce this, Krenshanda. She's a 911 operator. And she keeps hanging up on emergency callers. It came out after she was fired that she hung up on 855 callers. This man, his wife collapsed, so he called 911 and he said, "I need an ambulance. Can you send an ambulance? My wife collapsed." And she goes, "Okay," and hangs up. Doesn't get his name, doesn't get his address. So she's finally.
Her name is Krishanda?
No, like in a Crenshaw melon. CRENSHANDA.
That's Oklahoma. And by the way, Oklahoma is much more normal than most of the country. Oklahoma happens to be a pretty normal evangelical, a lot of evangelicals, much more normal state than most of the country.
So she was forced to serve a year of community service. Who knows how many people she killed by hanging up.
She should be executed. She should be given the death penalty.
And when they asked her why she did this, she said, "I don't have time to talk to people."
She should be given the death penalty because she's causing death of innocent people, this filthy beast.
Florida officer, Shaniqua, shoots her partner in an arrest in Florida. She's trying to make an arrest, and she's telling the guy to put his hands behind his back, and she's still holding her gun on him while she's doing this, and her partner comes running to assist, and the gun goes off, and she shoots her partner.
Shaniqua. Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, there's Carmelo Anthony. It looks like he bought a house or was renting a very big house, and he bought a Lexus with all the money you're giving him. And the people that are pro Carmelo, though, that number is growing daily. It's a good thing the police have the records and the police have a video, but that's not a court and that's not a jury. All you need is one juror to hang the whole jury. And he could get off. He could be another O.J. Simpson. And then again in Oklahoma, Trooper Jarquez Evans, arrested for an ultimatum. He made a traffic stop and he told this woman, if you don't want a ticket, you have to have sex with me. So, of course, he was let go.
He was just let go. He wasn't arrested?
Yeah, he was, but I think it's just he was fired from the force and that's it. That's not punishment. That should be step one and immediate. After that, what about punishment? And a Jack-in-the-Box employee, a car pulls up with about 3 people in it, and they want, I guess it's hamburgers. I don't know what Jack-in-the-Box, but they want curly fries. And the woman behind the window says, "You ain't getting no curly fries." So the guy starts yelling at her, and then he takes the bag with his stuff and he throws it back at the window where she is. And her manager comes and gets a gun and fires 2 shots at them because they threw the food back at the stand. So, of course, after 15 years, she was let go and nothing happened to her.
The manager was let go.
Yeah, because she's the one that fired the shots. Could have hit somebody. Lucky they didn't. Could have hit somebody that wasn't even in that car because she's leaning out the window and shooting like this. So she could have hit the car in front. Or if her aim was really off, she could have hit a car just coming in to place an order. But it's not just limited to a certain group of people. I saw something that I thought was pretty shocking, but I'm not shocked. This young man, I don't know, 16, 17, goes fishing in Florida under a bridge, a big bridge, a high bridge, but there's fish there because of the shadow. It's not bright, so the fish, no, they're a little safer there. They're harder to see. So he goes fishing there, he said 315 times a year. And this guy comes in his boat with 3 other men, and he zips in a big, faster boat, and he zips by this little guy, this kid fishing 10 feet away. And, his boat really rocks because of the wake. And then he does it even worse to another fishing boat. He goes 5 feet in front. But the kid starts yelling at him and cursing at him. And the guy who's driving the boat curses back. And he passes him the next time the kid's out fishing. And this time he starts demanding an apology for being cursed at. And when the kid just ignores him, he brings his boat right up alongside and boards the kid's boat. Now, I know that's illegal. Is it piracy? I don't know what you would call that. I don't know what the law of the sea is. But he boards the kid's boat and he starts threatening the kid. It's all caught on camera. Meanwhile, his 3 friends in the boat with him are ignoring it. It's like they want nothing to do with this guy. And of course, he was eventually arrested and charged and waiting trial. He'll probably do a plea deal, but he has anger management problems, and he should be seeing a shrink.
It's a good thing it happened in Florida. In New York, nothing would happen. Nothing would happen. We'd never have been arrested. Nothing would have happened in New York or in California. Nothing would happen. They'd probably
And
give him
the
probably
kid
give
was
him a
afraid of him
medal.
because this was a big guy.
They'd probably give him a medal in New York or in Florida.
Oh, and then I have this picture I'd like to show everyone. This is Kendrick. I'm not going to say which one is Kendrick.
Mm-hmm.
And he raped and killed someone. Oh, I gave it away by saying he. Well, now you see who he raped and killed.
Yeah. Uh,
And here's a woman that hated white people her entire life. Black Lives Matter, one of the higher ups. And she's shot in the head by a black man.
is she alive?
I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
The story just says she was shot in the head.
Mm.
And now I want to talk about Muslims a little. Oh, wait, then there's Democrat Maryland Senator Van Hollen, who went to El Salvador to try and bring back an illegal alien, which is bad enough, who's a drug dealer and a wife beater.
And a member of MS-13.
Yeah, oh yeah, I forgot that. MS-13.
A terrorist gang that murders people. They have
And
indoctrination into the gang. You have to rape or murder to get into the gang.
of course, El Salvador is more normal than we are now.
And everybody's outraged that he was deported. They said he was deported by mistake. That's a mistake? Two left-wing courts ruled that he was a gang member with a criminal history. That's a mistake. They're making such a big deal over this guy. This guy, by the way, the senator from what's his name, Van Hollen? The
Van
senator.
Hollen, Hollon.
What a Jew-hating pig this is. This Jew-hating pig he's the one who leads all the resolutions in the Senate. He and Bernie Sanders, all the resolutions against Israel, condemning Israel, supporting the Arab terrorists. He is such a Jew-hating swine, this filthy pig. When he went to visit him in the prison, they should have put him in a cell there too. They should have locked him up too.
Then I want to talk about Islam a little bit. In the Congo, in the year 2024, Muslims in Congo murdered 355 Christians during the year 2024. I'm surprised it's not more unless there's not that many Christians in the Congo.
It probably is more. What you're seeing is what they tell you, is what they
Yeah,
tell you.
this is probably what's reported.
I'll bet you it's more.
Because just recently they chopped the heads off of 70 Christians. They lined them up and just chopped their heads off. And the killer father of Sarah Sharif is in prison for that. He had his neck sliced open in prison. And in Amsterdam, jihadis attacking students as the police just stand there and watch. But that's not as bad as England. I watched a video of a British man saying he's leaving. He can't take this anymore. He said every weekend, 400 to 600, somewhere in between, 400 to 600,000 Muslims march up and down the streets screaming, "Death to all Jews." He said he's not for killing anyone. So he said he's getting out of England. He's English born, but he said he can't take this anymore. And just before we started the show, while I was waiting for Chaim to set the room up, I watched a video in England where leftists and Muslims protesting left-wing policy, protesting right-wing policies. And the prime minister is a big leftist and he's lost. He doesn't know what he's doing. And sometimes these countries, you just can't run them. There's too much split between the left and the right, or Muslims and normal people. Well, anyway, in this case, there was about 30, 40 policemen, some in dark uniforms, some wearing the bright green vests so that the traffic won't hit them. And the Muslims took off after them, and the police ran for their lives. So that's England today. There is no England anymore. And did you ever notice that when you go to a Muslim rally where they're supporting Hamas, and you see all the flags, and if you look at it, it looks very similar to the Jordanian flag, and the leftists are there supporting them too. What you never see, and if it's in this country, you never see an American flag at one of those protests.
I've seen American flags many times before they burned them.
Well, yeah, they burn the American flag alongside the Israeli, but you're never going to see a patriot waving an American flag.
No, but they burn American flags at these protests. I've seen that many times.
And yet, you go to an Israeli rally, a pro-Israeli rally, you not only see the Israeli flag, you'll also see some American flags. And the same thing in England. You'll see some British flags. But you'll never see a British flag at a Hamas rally with the left wing supporting them. I bet that's something everybody missed. And I have this long thing, but we're running a little late, so I'll save this for next week. It shows the difference between Democrats and Republicans. Now, the Republicans are better than bad, but the Democrats are even worse. And this will be a good example. I'm going to save it for next week. And that's all I have for this week.
Okay. In your heart, you know we're right. And in your guts, you know they're nuts. For J.T.F., until next week, and for David Ben Moshe, shalom.